I need you fuckers to wake up. A lot of people that worked for the Stasi and a lot of the intelligence agencies of the wider Soviet area of influence did not give a flying fuck about communism, the socialist idea, or fucking Marxism, okay? This is a subclass of fucking bureaucratics that hyper-focused on careerism and wanted to establish themselves whatever fucking way they could in whatever type of hierarchy that existed in their townships or in their Soviets or in their cities or in the structures that they operated in. Who the fuck do you think started half of the fucking oligarchies all around the post-Soviet fucking area and the post-Yugoslav area? Fucking half of them are ex-high-ranking communist generals and majors and fucking...
No, Hugo is actually right. And this is why Xi, like if you study what Xi has been doing, Xi has been focused on the political hygiene of the Chinese Communist Party. He's not letting it go like the USSR did. He's going through and he's making sure that Ministry of State Security, the general staff, you know, that they are politically dedicated socialists and communists, not just, you know, good at being a general or whatever the fuck. That's what Xi figured out. And that's why the West hates Xi so much. That's why they're so focused on him. Like, you know, they always say like, oh, he's going back to Mao or whatever. That's what they're talking about. They're not talking about his economic policies. They're talking about his political policies of trying to protect the Communist Party from being corrupted. That's what they're opposed to. Why? Because corruption equals CIA influence. There is a... here's how you get... I'm going to explain to you how people get corrupted by intelligence agencies. Like, it's the acronym for corruption by intelligence agents. I'm trying to search for it. Fuck, are they actually? Could I actually find this? Mice. Yes, there it is. Money, ideology, compromise, ego. Or why people commit treason. Right? So, the United States overwhelmingly relies on money and compromise. Compromise means like we have blackmail on you, and if you don't work with us, we're going to reveal your blackmail, right? That's why the CIA loves pedophiles. That's why the CIA absolutely loves pedophiles. If you're a pedophile, the CIA is there for you because that is a despicable crime that that would, you know, put you in prison for life and make people kill you. So if they could find a pedophile, and they will protect that pedophile because that person is under their thumb. That's why the Jeffrey Epstein files are so closely guarded secret, because that was Mossad, right? They were using compromise. And money is the other one. They'll just bribe people. But that doesn't work really well, because when you're buying somebody's loyalty, they don't want to die for you. And the reason why the KGB and the Chinese are so much better is because they use ideology and ego, which is they will say, oh, you believe in a better socialist world, you know, and you're fighting for something. You're joining a cause that you believe in. And that's how they're able to convince people to work against their country's interests. Because that is so much, that calls to your soul versus like you feel like you're doing the right thing. And you're willing to sacrifice for that. That's why they win. Because nobody believes in, like, how do you sacrifice for what? Another rich person to make money? Nobody wants to die for that.
This
All right, let's watch a couple minutes of this because I feel
video
like
presents a summary of key points contained in Xi Jinping's governance of China. I made this video for those who are interested in learning about Xi Jinping thought, but don't have the time to read all 2,400 pages.
Can you imagine Donald Trump writing 2,400 pages of political and philosophic treatise? Can you imagine Donald Trump writing anything? Even like, and like, can you imagine it? Like, or even Barack Obama thought. Barack Obama thought is how he faked being a socialist to try to get laid in college. Like, that's Barack Obama thought. 24,000 pages. Sorry, 2,400
pages of the governance of China.
That isn't even that long.
If you like the content produced on this channel, consider lending your support at the links in the description below.
Ghostwriters, Mike. Well, I don't know. I think Barack Obama wrote most of what he did. Actually, I think Obama is a pretty good writer. I think he wrote a lot of it.
Oh. The Governance of China is a 4-volume collection of speeches and writings by Xi Jinping, the General Secretary of the Communist Party of China, which outlines the official party perspective on China's development in the 21st century.
Did somebody say Epstein? Twitter files for Epstein carefully curated, politically targeted leaks to sycophantic influencers unwilling to ask questions. God,
The writings encompass Xi Jinping's views on economics, domestic and international politics, infrastructure, technology, environmentalism, peaceful coexistence, and military affairs. The Governance of China is a unique text because it is a book written from a global historical perspective by a statesman with the power to actually shape the future course of a major country. Through an extensive grasp on Chinese as well as Western history and literature, Xi Jinping not only articulates the intricacies of China's internal development, but relates China's development to its growing role in global politics. The text does not present a Western-style critique of capitalism, couched in the language of negation and idealism, but instead presents a tangible framework for concrete steps in the arduous struggle of building a communist society. With the rise of the People's Republic of China, its growing power on the global stage, as well as an emerging soft power conflict with the West, it is increasingly important that the world understands what China is doing, how it got here, where it is headed, and how nations across the world factor into this world historic transformation seen with the rise of socialist China. China's relationship to Marxism-Leninism began in the early 20th century during a time of significant social and political upheaval. The country experienced several major...
Yeah, like, that's so funny because people will talk about Mao killing a grudgillion people, and then you'll be like, okay, what do you think about the warlord era? And they're like, the what? Oh, I thought socialism killed a grudgillion people. You don't have any opinions about the capitalist period of China? What was the capitalist period of China like?
Major internal struggles for a long period of time, including the Taiping Rebellion in the mid-19th century, the Boxer Rebellion at the dawn of the 20th century, and the overthrow of the Qing dynasty in 1911. The fall of the Qing dynasty was followed by the fragmentation of China into regions controlled by warlords and the Kuomintang, leaving the country in chaos and vulnerable to foreign powers. It wasn't until the 1917 Russian Revolution that the Chinese saw a clear example of how Marxism-Leninism could be applied.
By the way, chat, the Taiping Rebellion killed 30 million people. 30 million people died in the Taiping Rebellion.
To overthrow a repressive regime and establish a socialist state. Inspired by the developments in Russia, Chinese intellectuals began to explore Marxism-Leninism as a solution to China's problems, which quickly led to the 1919 Democratic Revolution and the founding of the Communist Party of China in 1921. Mao Zedong, a key member of the party, played a crucial role in adapting Marxism-Leninism to China's specific conditions and predominantly rural population. His interpretation of Marxism-Leninism, known as Mao Zedong thought, emphasized the potential of the peasantry rather than the proletariat as the revolutionary class, marking a significant departure from classical Marxism but demonstrating the flexibility of Marxist theory in different historical and social contexts. Under Mao's leadership throughout the 1930s and 40s, the Communist Party engaged in various struggles against warlords, Kuomintang nationalists, and foreign invaders, notably during the Second Sino-Japanese War. In building the People's Liberation Army, the party recognized the importance of military strength and leadership. As Xi Jinping states, while it was engaged in violent struggle, the party came to recognize the irrefutable truth that it must command the gun and build a people's military of its own. Chinese people learned that it was an imperative to send the aggressors a message they would understand. War must be fought to deter aggression. Force must be met with force, and a victory is the best way to win peace and respect. We Chinese people do not provoke others, nor do we shy away from trouble. We do not give in to fear or yield in the face of difficulties and dangers. The Chinese nation will never cower before threats or be subdued by oppressors. By 1949, the communist victory in the Chinese Civil War and the establishment of the People's Republic of China marked the triumph of Marxism-Leninism in China and validated its significance in the Chinese Revolution. Over the past 95 years, the Communist Party of China has accomplished so many tasks which were thought to be impossible by other political forces. The reason for this has been precisely attributed to our adoption of Marxism as our guide of action. This has allowed our party to free itself from the limitations of all previous political forces, which focused on pursuing their own special interests. Departing from or abandoning Marxism, the party would lose its soul and direction. On the issue of Marxism as the fundamental guiding thought, we should not waver under any circumstances. Following the death of Mao Zedong, Deng Xiaoping rose to prominence and initiated the policy of reform and opening up in 1978.
Hi, old Bobby. How you doing?
Reform and opening up recognized the dialectical necessity of adapting to changing conditions and constantly developing theory to guide necessary changes in practice. For China, the overall purpose of development is to open up to the world through globalization, cultural exchange, and knowledge sharing. The process of opening up produces outcomes that cause changes in the social structure that require reform. Reform and opening up is therefore seen by the Communist Party of China as an ongoing and holistic process that will continue on indefinitely. Deng Xiaoping designed and led the Reform and Opening Up Initiative and the modern.
After the war in northern China, Mao instructed his forces to protect Japanese settlers and allow them time to leave, where rightly angry villages would sometimes foment riots and a few massacres. Mao understood that the expectation of socialism is to be better than the oppressors. Well, it does. I mean, they don't care about those facts.
Modernization drive with a view to improving the well-being of the Chinese people, stressing on many occasions that poverty is not socialism. Socialism means eliminating poverty. Unless you are developing the productive forces and raising people's living standards, you cannot say that you are building socialism. This policy marked a pragmatic shift towards prioritizing economic development over strict ideological purity, emphasizing the use of market mechanisms to develop the productive forces. The reforms introduced under Deng Xiaoping included decollectivizing agriculture, establishing special economic zones, and encouraging foreign investment. The new theoretical and practical foundations of reform and opening up allowed the Chinese economy to achieve swift growth, which accelerated rapidly after China's entrance into the World Trade Organization in 2001.
The thing to keep in mind about China is they had a very strong education system. They had a very strong health system. China got healthy before it got rich. So when they were able to have investment and capital and knowledge sharing come in, they were the best country in the world to take advantage of that because of the ground that had been laid by Maoist reforms.
Many criticized the party's embrace of pro-market reforms and integration into the capitalist world economy. But Deng Xiaoping and every paramount leader after him demonstrated that the process of moving towards the lofty ideal of communism unfolds at an incremental and gradual pace. Deng Xiaoping always understood that developing the forces of production would be a lengthy process and that China had a long march down the socialist road before approaching a new stage of socialist development.
Xi didn't break the process. He was voted in for another term. And honestly, I think that it was a good thing. I am not a person who believes that you should get rid of a good leader because of arbitrary term limits or some dumbass shit like that. I think that's a dumb fucking argument. It's stupid. If a leader is effective and is doing a good job, then they should stay in the position. You wouldn't fire a CEO. You wouldn't fire a coach because they're winning too many championships. Oh, I'm sorry, you won 8 championships. That's too many. You're fired. No one would ever do that in your regular life. It shouldn't apply to politics either. Is this just AI slop?
What if Mao Zedong returned today? The CCP would welcome Mao back to the country, and we would quickly place him as our leader. Mao would mobilize the Red Army and prepare China for war. He would quickly take over Taiwan, angering the capitalists of the West, who would then declare war. However, our glorious leader wouldn't wait around and would strike Japan. The Japanese forces wouldn't be ready, and these forces wouldn't be ready.
What the fuck are you showing me with your AI slop bullshit?
Reform and opening up catalyzed Chinese economic development, lifted hundreds of millions out of absolute poverty, and laid the groundwork for the development of what would become known as socialism with Chinese characteristics. Xi Jinping explains that this concept embraces a dialectical view of socialism that integrates the universal ideals of Marxism and socialism with China's unique historical and material conditions. Socialism with Chinese characteristics represents a theory, path, and system of how China will further advance down the socialist road through the implementation of theory into the practice of statecraft. The evolving nature of the theory is based on the necessity of informing practice based on changing conditions and the needs of the people as a whole. Xi Jinping describes it as a holistic theory that conceptualizes Chinese society in its totality. Every institution, policy, campaign, and long-term plan is informed by the lofty goal of achieving communism, correcting erroneous views and decisions, and unifying all mindsets, policies, and measures to carry China beyond the primary stage of socialism. Socialism with Chinese characteristics is built on the foundation of Marxism-Leninism and Mao Zedong thought, which offer basic scientific principles for understanding the world through a dialectical materialist worldview. Marxism-Leninism is seen as a universally applicable theory, while Mao Zedong thought represents this theory under specifically Chinese conditions. On top of this foundation is Deng Xiaoping theory, Jiang Zemin's concept of the three represents, and Hu Jintao's scientific outlook on development. Each of these contributions to socialism with Chinese characteristics is understood to be temporally determined or specific to unique circumstances at a given historical period of China's development.
I would say that the key element that's being expressed here is pragmatism. Pragmatism, which is like, okay, in order for us to achieve our goals, we have to develop. How do we develop? Within the world conditions that we're in. We need resources and we need educational, informational sharing, but how do we do so within a capitalist world while also at the same time maintaining power and maintaining our long-term goal? And that's basically the argument here, which is like, okay, we're going to use these engines. We're going to put a bridle on the horse of capital, and we're going to develop China to a certain point where it is capable of then resuming a different path.
For example, in 2004,
Xi could press the full communism button anytime he wants, but he can't but he does it just to piss off the ultras. Oh, so true. So true. I mean, he could easily just say we're full communism now.
As China's growing market economy intensified social inequalities, Jiang Zemin found it necessary to reiterate and solidify the party's commitment to people-centered and socialist development by introducing the three represents into the party constitution, ensuring the equal representation of economic, cultural, and people-centered development in governmental affairs. Lastly, the most recent contribution to socialism with Chinese characteristics has come from Xi Jinping. Xi Jinping thought marks a significant turning point in Chinese development and the theory of socialism with Chinese characteristics. The term thought has not been used to describe the theory of any paramount leader since Mao, which signifies a deeper level of importance to the contribution. But further,
lovely sunshine again on a beautiful Saturday morning. It's cascading on my face, so good. I said Yang Yuba is so much better than a hash restaurant in McDonald's. Let's make the tremendous Yangyu Bar great again. I'm walking down the street of Chengdu in the middle of the night. Look at this. You don't know where Chengdu is. I'll tell you what. Chengdu is practically the capital of southwest of China.
Every city in China is safe.
Furthermore, since achieving moderate prosperity in all respects, Xi Jinping emphasizes that China has entered a new stage of development and makes frequent reference to socialism with Chinese characteristics for a new era. In 1997, Jiang Zemin introduced the concept of the two centenary goals: to achieve a moderately prosperous society in all respects by 2021, the centenary of the Communist Party of China, and to achieve a modern socialist country that is prosperous, strong, democratic, culturally advanced, harmonious, and beautiful by 2049, the centenary of the People's Republic of China. The two centenary goals were taken up and popularized by Xi Jinping, who elevated them into a central theoretical component of socialism with Chinese characteristics, and used them as a national call for the Chinese people to continue pushing towards national rejuvenation. Working towards moderate prosperity in all respects saw remarkable progress in poverty reduction. From the end of 2012 to the end of 2017, the rural poor population decreased by 68.53 million, or about 70%. On average, 13.7 million people were lifted out of poverty annually, which was more than double the annual rate of reduction during previous poverty reduction programs. By 2020, all people in these regions were guaranteed food, clothing, compulsory education, basic medical care, and safe housing. Poverty-stricken rural areas saw increased rates of growth, family disposable income, and basic public services. China's poverty alleviation achievements are the culmination of people-centered development and economic planning. Throughout the first several decades of China's reform and opening up, means of production were used to produce means of production in order to catch up with the West. However, with the achievement of moderate prosperity in all respects, China's high-tech sector is now quickly approaching and even surpassing the West, standing at the cutting edge of scientific and technological breakthroughs in the fields of AI, quantum information, mobile communication, blockchain, synthetic biology, gene editing, regenerative medicine, cosmology, robotics, and many others. Throughout the late 20th century, Chinese workers produced goods that were exported abroad rather than consumed at home. However, the economic success experienced throughout the 21st century has allowed for greater considerations to be made regarding people's well-being, the natural environment, and social justice. China's new economic strategy emphasizes high-quality development that is innovative, coordinated, green, open, and inclusive.
I think one of the things that's really important is why there's been this kind of turn against China by the Western powers is because traditionally the global South was the place where raw resources were extracted at extremely favorable terms, and they were brought to the core Western countries, the developed industrial countries, where they were turned into high value add products, right? You take raw iron ore and then you ship it to Germany, and then Germany sells Audis, right? And that's where the like a lot of the economic, and then you would import, you know, the Audis down to the country you got the iron ore out of, right? You can get a lot of iron ore for an Audi, right? More iron ore than it takes to build an Audi, just so happens to be. So that is an example of how this like economic system has flowed and worked, which is, you know, these countries in the West, they absorb those raw resources and then they get to consume, and they get the profit from the high value add production. A lot of that has now since moved to China. And what China has done is they maintained a trade surplus, meaning that they sold more stuff by value than they brought in imports. And China imports a lot of stuff. They import food, they import oil, they import coal, they import other raw resources. And what China has done is they have set themselves up to be the high value add economy. And now, when they got to the middle stage of development, they've now started to push themselves into the areas where the West had an advantage, designing microchips, super high value add manufacturing, more advanced manufacturing, advanced design, services, things like that. Now China is starting to compete head to head on all those areas. And it's like, oh shit, not only do they have low mid-tier manufacturing, light industry, heavy industry, they're now pushing for cutting-edge technology. And that is going to supplant the Western powers economically. And that's why there's been like oh shit, we need to put the brakes on China because they're going to surpass. Well, thank you, Vio. Vio has given me another plate of fruit. Vio has given me a bunch of fruit for breakfast. Thanks, Vio. And lunch. And cheese. And some meat. And some crackers. Thanks, Vio. All right, let's keep going.
As Xi Jinping says, we must put the people's interests first. Under no circumstances can we ever alter our standpoint of breathing the same air as the people and sharing a common future with them. Nor can we forget our purpose, which is to serve the people wholeheartedly. Nor can we discard the view of historical materialism that the people are the real heroes. Serving the people wholeheartedly and always representing the fundamental interests of the greatest possible majority of the people are the important preconditions and foundation for the implementation and development of consultative democracy. According to Xi Jinping, from 2021 to 2035, China will build on the foundations created by its moderately prosperous society with 14 more years of hard work to ensure that socialist modernization is generally realized. The party's vision is that by the end of this stage, China's economic and technological strength will have increased significantly, the rights of the people will be adequately protected, social etiquette and civility will be enhanced.
You're allowed to criticize the CCP from the left. People do. There are more left-wing members of the Communist Party than Xi. I kind of think of Xi as like the center-left of the Communist Party of China. Which is a very funny phrase, but is also true.
People will lead more comfortable lives. The size of the middle income group will have grown significantly. A modern social governance system will have taken shape, and society will be full of vitality, harmonious, and orderly. Xi Jinping emphasizes that
he just explained the two centenaries, man. They wanted to do two things by 100 years after the Communist Party was founded and 100 years after they took over China. So, 2021 and 2049. They wanted to have certain stages of development completed by those dates.
that this process represents.
Why is China supporting Russia the way they do? I don't think China is that supportive of Russia. I think they have a relatively even-handed approach toward Russia. For example, they abstained from a pro-Russia bill in the UN General Assembly just the other day that the United States and Israel voted for. I'd say China is just pretty much neutral, and they trade with Russia in kind of mutually beneficial ways, but they haven't been sending them all their weapons and shit. They haven't actually been doing that. They just haven't sanctioned Russia, which a lot of other countries have taken that same position, like, you know, India.
The movement towards the higher stage of socialism. Achieving communism is the highest ideal of the Communist Party of China, and party members, particularly party officials, should maintain.
I think China has condemned Russia's invasion, or at least said that they don't agree with it. I'd have to go and see exactly how they're not opposed to Russia, but I don't think they've showed support of it at all. Because if they did, you would hear people complaining about it nonstop. And I don't think they actually have. I think they have like continued to trade with Russia, but they haven't stated a position in support of the invasion.
Particularly party officials, should maintain a firm belief presents the movement towards the higher stage of socialism. Achieving communism is the highest ideal of the Communist Party of China, and party members, particularly party officials, should maintain a firm belief in lofty communist ideals, along with the common ideal of building socialism with Chinese characteristics, and pursue them with dedication.
How do you square the circle with a lot of billionaires? You don't.
Xi Jinping recognizes that capital still has an important role to play in China's modernization efforts and encourages its orderly regulation rather than abolition. He says that after the launch of the reform and opening up, we broke free from a restrictive mindset on ownership and came to realize that capital, as a major factor of production, can serve as a tool for the market to allocate resources and an effective means to grow the economy. Yet we must be aware that capital is profit-driven in nature, and if unregulated and unconstrained, it will cause immeasurable damage to the economy and society. The 2008 global financial crisis has taught us that allowing capital to blindly pursue profit will result in chaos, and that global prosperity cannot be built on the shaky foundations of a market without moral constraints. The growing gap between rich and poor is both unfair and unsustainable. It is important for us to use both the invisible hand and the visible hand to form synergy between market forces and government functions, and strive
I call him center left
to achieve both efficiency and fairness.
Liberals do.
We must set up traffic lights for capital flows. Traffic on the road needs to be controlled with traffic lights. Likewise, capital also needs to be regulated. No capital of any type can be allowed to run out of control. We must prevent the unchecked growth of capital and combat monopolies, exorbitant profits, sky-high prices, destructive speculation, and unfair competition. We must reinforce effective regulation of capital in accordance with the law. The socialist market economy is law-based, and capital must operate in accordance with the law. Curbing the disorderly expansion of capital is not intended to deny.
One thing that separates China from the West is that the Chinese are very comfortable with state-owned enterprise. It's not like they're just going like deregulate, privatize everything. On the contrary, it's like we're going to make sure that as much as can be collectively owned as possible is collectively owned.
Its worth, but to ensure its orderly growth. To regulate capital, we should strictly enforce the relevant laws and regulations and improve those that are incomplete. We must support the healthy growth of capital through regulation and guidance. The 2021 centenary goal of achieving a moderately prosperous society in all respects was tied to achieving quantitative benchmarks in economic development, such as the elimination of absolute poverty, increasing the numbers of the middle class through elevated living standards, growing the GDP of the country through technological innovations and advancements, and closing the gap between rural and urban economies. However, after 2021, when these benchmarks had been surpassed, greater focus shifted towards qualitative standards, such as high-tech, people-oriented, and green development. Xi Jinping's vision for the future of China is of a green, environmentally sustainable, and beautiful nation, leading the world in sustainable technologies and development to move towards a model of ecological civilization. He explains the necessity of green development for China by pointing out that the total population of well-off countries in the world is about 1 billion. China has more than 1.3 billion people. If we are all to become modernized, the well-off population must more than double. If we were to consume as much energy and production in daily lives as the present well-off people do, all of the existing resources in the world would be far from enough for us. The old path seems to be a dead end. Where is the new road? It lies in scientific and technological innovation and in the accelerated transition from factor-driven and investment-driven growth to innovation-driven growth.
So basically, like, he's like, oh, okay, we can't just burn fossil fuels because we'll destroy the planet. So we're going to do something differently. That's why they invested in renewable energy. That's why they invested in high-speed rail as opposed to building a bunch of airplanes. And that's instead of just building coal plants and saying, fuck fossil, who gives a shit? We'll just burn as much as we can because it doesn't work. So if China wants to be wealthy, they have to be wealthy in a way that is in a sustainable balance with the environment, or else the world will fucking fall apart.
In an overall effort of progressing towards a future that is both prosperous and sustainable, China's high-tech sector continues to develop new green technologies, such as electric vehicles, hydropower, nuclear energy, energy storage systems, smart grids, green infrastructure, solar and wind energy, as well as carbon capture technologies. We should endeavor to build a green, clean, and beautiful world. The Earth is the only shared home for humanity. Now, a few individuals are trying to find a new home in outer space, but that is still a distant dream. In the foreseeable future, human beings still need to live on this planet. This is a fact that will not change. We must defend the Earth's boundaries, both tangible and intangible, to ensure harmony between humanity and nature. We need to improve planning regarding our territorial space, implement our functional zoning strategy, and draw up red lines for ecological conservation. We should accelerate efforts to establish a system of nature reserves, improve biodiversity protection networks, and set reasonable spatial limits for economic and social activities. We will never again seek economic growth at the cost of the environment. China's rule of law functions as one of the primary means of cultivating a harmonious society of internal stability and social order, where conflicts are managed in the interests of overall social cohesion. The democratic people's dictatorship is composed of the four classes of Chinese society: the national bourgeoisie, the petty bourgeoisie, workers, and farmers. Deng Xiaoping pointed out that although China's socialist economy and political system were imperfect, they have continued to improve and are much better than the capitalist system, based on the law of the jungle and the principle of getting ahead at the expense of others. Our system will improve more and more with the passage of time. By absorbing the progressive elements of other countries, it will become the best in the world. Capitalism can never achieve this. Elsewhere, he added, democracy in capitalist societies is bourgeois democracy. In fact, it is the democracy of monopoly capitalists. It is no more than a system of multi-party elections, separation of judicial, executive, and legislative powers, and a bicameral legislature. Ours is the system of the People's Congress and the People's Democracy, under the leadership of the Communist Party. We cannot adopt the practices of the West. The great advantage of the socialist system is that when the central leadership makes a decision, it is promptly implemented without interference from any other quarters. In contrast to the Anglo-American legal system, based on the supposed separation of legal powers, the Chinese system was created through a combination of socialist...
Which, by the way, Elon Musk and Donald Trump and the Republicans are showing you right now is an illusion. It's a total bullshit illusion. Now that capital wants the American government to do a certain thing, they're doing it. All of a sudden, the separation of powers fell away. All of a sudden, a minority party can't resist anything. When the Republicans were in the minority, they could block anything. When the Democrats are in the minority, they have no power. How is that?
Innovation and traditional Chinese practices to produce a legal system that is not only functional, but also promotes harmony and moral virtue by reflecting the democratic will of the Chinese people. According to Xi Jinping, Chinese law epitomizes the ethos and wisdom of the Chinese nation and contains many excellent ideas and concepts worth passing on. These include the governance strategy of enforcing public discipline through the application of both morality and law, the people-centered concept that the people are the foundation of the state, and only when the foundation is solid will the state be stable, the wish for social harmony without lawsuits, the idea of prudence that prioritizes moral enlightenment over legal punishment, the concept of equality that advocates passing judgment in accordance with the law and ensures that the punishment fits the crime, and the principle of leniency towards widowers, widows, orphans, childless couples, the elderly, children, women, and people with disabilities. All of these shed light on the wisdom of Chinese traditional legal culture. Despite the many examples of Chinese law reflecting the democratic will of the masses, Western critics insist on characterizing the Chinese system as authoritarian, framing China as desiring to expand its control outward. But Xi Jinping responds to these accusations by reiterating that China will never seek hegemony. As China continues to grow, some people start to worry. Some take a dark view of China and assume that it will inevitably become a threat as it develops further. They even portray China as being a terrifying Mephisto who will someday suck the soul of the world. Such absurdity couldn't be more ridiculous, yet some people, regrettably, never tire of preaching it. This shows that prejudice is indeed hard to overcome. In addressing the question of whether the party is above the law, Xi Jinping stated, "This question itself is problematic and is a political trap. We must leave no room for confusion, but answer the question clearly. Party leadership and law-based governance are not in conflict, but inherently coherent. Our country's laws embody the will of the party and the people, and our party acts in accordance with the law, which manifests an inseparable relationship between the two. All party members should keep in mind that the party leadership is the soul of our country's socialist rule of law and the biggest difference between Chinese and Western rule of law."
It's so funny, but like compare Xi's writings and arguments with like what Hitler would say. Like it's very funny when people talk about like horseshoe theory or like. I have a lot of disagreements with Xi. I've been mostly just letting this video play because I think it's important for people to understand exactly why I have a relatively even-handed approach toward China, which is recognizing that it isn't like the ideal end state that I want, but it also has a lot of things that are going for it that are positive, and it's clearly working, and they're doing things that are the right thing to do in certain areas. And like, this is a very, very like sane position, but yet it's considered to be an extreme position. I don't know why. I find it to be common sense, but hey.
China is the fourth largest country in terms of geographic territory, the second most populous country with 1.4 billion people, the world's second largest national economy, and it holds a permanent seat on the UN Security Council. However, China's economic underdevelopment has historically hindered its ability to outwardly exercise power or influence. Progress towards the Chinese dream of national rejuvenation is therefore also tied to the party's desire to restore China's pride and place on the world stage. Xi Jinping's vision for China's global role is deeply influenced by the principles of peaceful coexistence and mutual benefit. China's approach to international relations is governed by the idea that all countries...
This is a photo of China brokering a peace treaty between Saudi Arabia and Iran so that they stop, you know, fighting proxy wars with terrorists.
Countries should pursue development that is inclusive and beneficial to all parties involved. Xi Jinping has frequently spoken of the need to build a global community of shared future, where nations work together to address common challenges and achieve mutual prosperity. China's commitment to peaceful coexistence is reflected in its opposition to protectionism and economic hegemony. Xi Jinping has made it clear that China is firmly against any form of protectionism and is willing to resolve economic and trade differences through consultation rather than confrontation. This stance is part of China's broader strategy to promote the establishment of a multilateral trade system characterized by balanced and mutually beneficial development. By advocating for a rules-based international order, China seeks to ensure that global economic governance is fair and inclusive, allowing all nations to benefit from globalization. It is important for all countries to pursue inclusive development for the benefit of all. To lead a happy life is the common aspiration of people all over the world. The progress of human society requires a continued effort from all countries to further opening up, cooperation, and win-win development, and reject isolation, confrontation, and monopoly. In a world of deeper economic globalization, the pursuit of the law of the jungle and winner takes all leads nowhere. Inclusive growth for all is surely the right way forward. countries need to rise above differences and leverage their respective strengths to pursue inclusive growth in the face of common risks and challenges. This way, people of all countries will be able to share in the benefits of economic globalization and global growth. One of the most significant expressions of China's commitment to peaceful development and mutual benefit is the Belt and Road Initiative. Launched in 2013, the Belt and Road Initiative is a global economic development strategy that aims to enhance connectivity and cooperation between countries across Asia, Europe, and Africa. The initiative is a manifestation of Xi Jinping's vision for an open and inclusive world order, where economic cooperation is not based on ideological alignment or geopolitical considerations, but on mutual benefit. China has grown from a poor and weak country to the second largest economy, not through military expansion or colonial plunder, but through the hard work of its people and their efforts to uphold peace. China will never waver in its pursuit of peaceful development. No matter how strong its economy grows, China will never seek hegemony, expansion, or spheres of influence. History has borne this out, and will continue to do so. We will not, however, accept condescending sermons from those who feel they have the right to lecture us. China shares a common destiny with all third world countries. China will never seek hegemony or bully others, but will always side with the third world, and China will oppose any forms of hegemony and safeguard world peace. Xi Jinping has repeatedly emphasized that the Belt and Road Initiative is not a geopolitical or military alliance, but an economic initiative aimed at fostering global development. The Belt and Road Initiative was launched in response to the call for reforming the global governance system. It is an open and inclusive process that does not exclude any party. It is not designed to form an exclusive bloc or China club. Its participation is not based on ideology and is certainly not a zero-sum game. Any country that wants to participate in this initiative is welcome to do so. China's approach to international relations is also characterized by a strong commitment to the principles of non-interference and respect for sovereignty. Informed by its own historical experiences under foreign domination, China is acutely sensitive to the rights of other nations to self-determination. This sensitivity is reflected in China's adherence to the 5 principles of peaceful coexistence: mutual respect for territorial integrity, mutual non-aggression, non-interference in each other's internal affairs, mutual benefit, and peaceful coexistence with regard to ideological differences. We have never abused, oppressed, or subjugated the people of any other country, and we never will. By the same token, we will never allow any foreign force to abuse, oppress, or subjugate us. Anyone who would attempt to do so would find themselves on a collision course with a great wall of steel forged by over 1.4 billion Chinese people. Big countries should treat smaller ones as equals instead of acting as hegemons, imposing their wills on others. A country cannot have security while others are in turmoil, as threats facing other countries are likely to haunt it too. When neighbors are in trouble, instead of strengthening one's own forces, one should extend a helping hand to them. As the saying goes, united we stand, divided we fall. All countries should pursue common, comprehensive, and sustainable security through cooperation. For all the rhetoric about a clash of civilizations or the superiority of one civilization over another, it is the diversity of civilizations that sustains human progress. Indeed, mutual learning between different cultures is a shared aspiration of all peoples.
Wait a minute. Why isn't he saying that Chinese culture is the best culture? Why isn't he saying Chinese culture is the best culture and everybody should just adopt? Wait, what do you mean? Why isn't he saying Han Chinese people are the best people and the most superior? This is so weird.
The People's Republic of China has overcome monumental tasks in liberating itself.
I mean, I'm just letting the video play because it's like, how many of you have ever heard any of Xi Jinping's thoughts or writing? Whether you think he's lying or not, be honest. Whether you think China can be trusted or not, leave that to the side for a second. He just sounds like a reasonable, common sense guy saying common sense things. Donald Trump doesn't say shit like that. Does Donald Trump say the strength of the world is the diversity of our cultures? Like, come on.
A century of humiliation and tackling major social problems. Victory in the Korean War, eradicating widespread opium addiction, and lifting hundreds of millions out of poverty are only a few
China
examples.
had their own heroin epidemic, their own opium epidemic, their own, it wasn't fentanyl, but they had to go through they had millions of people die to heroin and opium overdoses and addiction, just like we're having now. Now they don't. They've eradicated, to almost the fullest extent possible, heroin addiction in China. It doesn't exist. Why doesn't it exist in China? Why isn't there a large population of heroin addicted people like there is in the United States? Americans would tell you it's because America respects civil liberties and China doesn't. That is absolute nonsensical bullshit. The reason why we have heroin in this country is because the heroin trade has always been supported by U.S. intelligence agencies.
Examples of the monumental achievements by China under the People's Republic. However, China still faces challenges that are deeply rooted in the past. One of the greatest and most persistent challenges facing China today is the need for national reunification with Taiwan. When China was a weak country, the Japanese invaded and occupied Taiwan, inflicting a traumatic experience on all Chinese people on both sides of the straits. While Taiwan was under Japanese occupation, many Taiwanese shed their blood and laid down their lives to fight against this encroachment on China's sovereignty, proving they were inseparable members from the extended family of the Chinese nation. The Chinese nation has an honorable tradition of opposing division and safeguarding unity. Secessionism directed towards Taiwan independence is the greatest obstacle to national reunification and a grave danger to national rejuvenation. Those who forget their roots, betray their motherland, and seek to split the country will come to no good end. They will be condemned by the people and indicted by history. Taiwan is seen by Xi Jinping as an inalienable part of China, and the Taiwan question as a wound left by history. He states that the blood of the Chinese nation flows in every Chinese person, and the bond between people on both sides of the Taiwan Straits cannot be altered by any force. We people on both sides of the Taiwan Straits are Chinese and share a natural affinity and national identity built on kinship and mutual assistance, a fact that can never be altered by any force or any people. Xi Jinping invites all Chinese on both sides of the Taiwan Straits to recognize their common history, reunite as a people, and share in China's growing prosperity. We must handle cross-straits relations on the basis of a clear understanding of the trend of history. The great renewal of the Chinese nation has never been closer thanks to the tireless efforts of all the sons and daughters of China. We should view from high ground the great trend of history with changing times and the rise of the Chinese nation, and realize that the peaceful development of cross-straits relations has become part and parcel of China's great renewal. Sooner or later, we will have to resolve the political disputes that have long existed in cross-straits relations rather than leave them to later generations. No one should underestimate the resolve, the will, and the ability of the Chinese people to defend our national sovereignty and territorial integrity. The complete reunification of our country can and will be realized. While historic challenges such as national reunification continue to persist from the past, the new era is also giving rise to new challenges. Perhaps the greatest and most threatening problem confronting China in the new era is the threat to the Communist Party's authority amid the growing economic power of the national bourgeoisie. If the economic power of the national bourgeoisie is translated into political power, it threatens to strengthen counter-revolutionary tendencies and drag the country back into factionalism, violence, and chaos. Therefore, the party keeps tight controls and regulations on the economic power of the national bourgeoisie in order to suppress its political power. This is also why Xi Jinping frames corruption as an existential threat facing the party. The biggest threat our party faces as a governing party is corruption. Facts prove that if corruption is allowed to spread, it will eventually lead to the destruction of a party and the fall of a government.
Which, by the way, applies to the Democrats, right? They allow corruption to spread and the party's falling apart. And who leads the party? Who leads the Democratic Party in Congress is Hakeem Jeffries. He is the definition of a corrupt piece of shit. We've allowed corruption to spread. We haven't held people accountable for corruption, and it's destroying the party. And he's talking about the far left in America. There is no far left.
In combating corruption and upholding integrity, we must also oppose ideas and practices smacking of privilege. Members of the Communist Party of China are at all times ordinary members of the working people. Party members are only entitled to some personal benefits and job-related functions and powers prescribed by law and policies, and must not seek any personal gain or privilege over and above those. Combating corruption means upholding the party's commitment to the people and the high ideals of communism. The party came to power through unwavering dedication to the people, demonstrating unparalleled sacrifices in serving their interests. And today's leaders have large shoes to fill in upholding the legacy of the party and continuing the long march down the socialist road. Through China's revolution, development, and reform, innumerable party members laid down their lives for the cause of the party and the people. What supported them was the moral strength gained from the utmost importance they attached to their revolutionary ideals. Some are skeptical about communism, considering it a fantasy that will never come true. Some do not believe in Marxism-Leninism, but in ghosts and gods, seeking spiritual solace in feudal superstitions, showing intense interest in fortune-telling, worship of Buddha, and God's advice for solving their problems. Some have little sense of principle, justice, or right and wrong, and perform their duties in a muddle-headed manner. Some even yearn for Western social systems and values, losing their confidence in the future of socialism. And others adopt an equivocal attitude towards political provocations against the leadership of the Communist Party of China, the path of socialism with Chinese characteristics, and other matters of principle. They passively avoid relevant arguments without the courage to express their opinions, or even deliberately deliver ambiguous messages. Isn't it a monstrous absurdity that party officials, especially high-ranking ones, take no position in the face of major issues of principle, political incidents, and sensitive issues?
So true.
As part of its efforts to combat party corruption and promote upright public officials, party discipline is enforced from the highest to lowest ranks. All party members are mandated to learn the teachings of Marx, Engels, Lenin, Mao, Deng Xiaoping theory, the Three Represents, the scientific outlook on development, and Xi Jinping thought to grasp the history, outlook, tactics, strategies, and goals of the party. Xi Jinping emphasizes that studying these works helps ensure ideological unity, strengthen the legitimacy of the Chinese Communist Party, and guide future governance. Learning from past leaders and adapting Marxism to China's evolving needs helps maintain political stability, reinforce party discipline, and address modern challenges while promoting a distinct Chinese path forward. Xi Jinping asserts that communism is not as simple as a meal of goulash, and it cannot be attained easily, but we cannot dismiss it as an illusion or choose not to be loyal communists just because there is a long way to go. Our revolutionary ideals are of supreme importance. Communism is the ultimate ideal of communists, and it needs generations of strenuous effort to achieve. If we all see it as no more than an illusion, if we deem it unworthy of hard work and sacrifice, communism will never come. What we do today in upholding and developing Chinese socialism is the real effort towards the ultimate ideal. Revolutionary ideals are more important than anything else. The party is called the Communist Party of China because since day one, our party has made communism its highest ideal. The reason our party is able to rise again and again through hardships and adversities is because the party has always held on to this great ideal and aspiration.
I think this is actually very, very, very important and very, very true. Because if you want to have an organization to succeed, it has to be based on something more than just self-interest or even like incentive. It has to touch the soul of the person.
In addition to the Chinese classics of Marxism-Leninism, members of the Communist Party are also encouraged to gain an appreciation of the best traditions of Chinese thought, such as Confucianism. Confucian ideals of ethical leadership, moral governance, and social harmony align well with the party's focus on integrity, particularly in regards to anti-corruption efforts. Xi Jinping sees Confucianism as complementary to the larger framework of socialist governance, integrating it into a larger Marxist framework and worldview.
I do think that the traditions of China did, like Confucianism, have affected what political arguments became successful and which ones didn't, right? And just like the idea that if the regular people's lives suck, then you shouldn't be in charge of the country is a Chinese belief. Like if things are worse, like if things are shit, then you shouldn't be in charge of the country is like a key foundational belief in the history of China. When things start to blow, they blame the leaders.
Further argues that it is necessary to study the great teachings of other cultures as well. The Communist Party of China was conceived based on a European critique of capitalism and a Russian example of revolutionary struggle. Therefore, the ideological foundation of the Communist Party of China is firmly grounded in the works of foreign cultures. Xi Jinping argues that it is necessary for China to continue learning from other cultures, but warns of the danger of becoming overly subsumed by Western influence. A number of people, even including some party members, cannot see the underlying dangers of accepting the universal values that have developed in the West over hundreds of years, along with certain Western political dogma. They argue we need not reject them since we would not suffer any significant harm by accepting them. Some even regard Western theories and discourse as the gold standard and thus unconsciously become trumpeters of Western capitalist ideology. Studying Marxist classics, the theory of socialism with Chinese characteristics, the great works of traditional Chinese culture, as well as the worldly literature of other civilizations, is necessary for cultivating strong socialist values and practices. Xi Jinping explains that the core socialist values that we should cultivate and practice are prosperity, democracy, civility, harmony, freedom, equality, justice, the rule of law, patriotism, dedication, integrity, and friendship.
We have to encourage friendship.
This not only means adhering to the constitution, direction, and strategy of the party, but going beyond what is required through a sense of patriotic and socialist duty in contributing towards national rejuvenation. The ideal party official is honest, well-read, incorruptible, pragmatic, and unwavering in his or her commitment to the lofty goal of achieving a communist society. However, only a small minority of party members approach this high standard. Some party officials have learned socialist theory by rote and don't have a firm grasp on how their role relates to the broader social totality. Some party officials simply join the party as a means of advancing their careers in the public sector. Others have become complacent, having given up on the prospect of ever achieving a communist society and simply go through the motions. Still others seek to do the bare minimum to get by and avoid making any difficult decisions for fear of being scrutinized and pass the buck down to lower officials. In Xi Jinping's words, the main features of self-indulgence are mental laxity, resting on one's laurels, vanity, coveting pleasure, pursuing ostentation, and seeking to keep oneself amused. Some party officials have become demoralized, and their faith has been shaken. Their philosophy of life is to indulge themselves in pleasure-seeking, drinking your fill as long as you have wine to drink, and seizing the moments of contentment in life and making the most of them. Some have abandoned their ideals.
Xi is basically saying, oh, you took the grill pill? You bitch-ass loser. You're not allowed to take the grill pill. Did you take the grill pill? Did you get demoralized? You bitch-made loser.
In favor of material comforts, vulgar amusements, revelry, drinking, and a life of luxury. Some take on easy tasks and shirk hard work because they have no taste for hardship and effort. They lack motivation and new goals because they are happy with the status quo, satisfied with their limited knowledge and understanding, and content with their past achievements. They idle through the day flipping through newspapers, drinking tea, and chatting, their gaze wandering abstractly because they have no purpose.
God damn, we're called out right now. We are all called out right now.
Xi Jinping's approach to governing China is also informed by the historical lessons drawn from the collapse of the Soviet Union. He cites the failure of the Soviet Union as a warning for China emphasizing that one of the key reasons for its collapse was the detachment of the Communist Party from the people. In Xi Jinping's view, the Soviet leadership became a privileged group of bureaucrats who served their own interests rather than the broader population, leading to a loss of popular support and ultimately to the downfall of the Soviet Union.
He's right.
For Xi Jinping, this experience serves as a powerful reminder of the importance of maintaining a close connection between the party and the people. He insists that Chinese leadership must be vigilant in staying connected to the populace, ensuring that policies are effective and serve the broader public interest. This emphasis on connection between the party and the people is seen as crucial for avoiding the pitfalls that led to the collapse of former socialist states. As China becomes wealthier and people experience a better life, many no longer feel the need to become politically engaged. This is a major concern for the Communist Party and its connection with the people as a fundamental basis for political action. As Xi Jinping says, we must be very clear. There are still many inadequacies in our work and many difficulties and challenges to face. The main ones are as follows: unbalanced and inadequate development, public well-being, poverty alleviation, disparities in developing between rural and urban areas, income distribution, employment, education, healthcare, housing, elderly care, and civic awareness. Decisions made by the Communist Party must be informed by the people through democratic processes at the grassroots level, with active engagement in elections for local people's congresses and village committees, as well as consultative democracy. The challenge of building socialist values, political consciousness, and democratic participation is a growing concern, particularly in regard to Chinese youth. Unlike many previous generations who were required to sacrifice so much to build China's productive forces, Chinese youth today are born into a world where those sacrifices are bearing great fruit. In contrast to the life of struggle carried out by previous generations, the youth of today can expect to enjoy a much freer and more prosperous lifestyle. Under such conditions, the theories of Marxism-Leninism and Mao Zedong thought are increasingly being seen as irrelevant or outdated to the quickly modernizing and prosperous Chinese society. Today's youth often seem less interested in the history of class struggle than they are in new technologies, fashion, music, travel, and Western art. Therefore, the party sees the need to continue educating itself so that it may educate the masses and the youth on the importance of committing oneself to the lofty ideals of communism.
True. Caught.
The emerging digital realm is one new area of social life that is giving rise to novel social problems. China has more netizens than any other country in the world, and the Communist Party of China encourages them to use the internet as a tool to represent Chinese culture abroad. The rapid technological development seen in the digital realm has opened new opportunities, but has also opened communication networks for terrorists and cybercriminals. The internet cannot be a lawless place. The use of the internet to advocate the toppling of the government, preach religious extremism, or incite separatism and terrorism must be resolutely prevented and punished. Under absolutely no circumstances can such activities be allowed to go unchecked. Digital platforms have also introduced the problem of online circulation of disinformation. Despite the many historic achievements in advancing human rights and the well-being of the people, the Communist Party of China frequently comes under attack by Western powers through disinformation channels such as Radio Free Asia. With the vast growth in the number of users of microblogs, WeChat, and other social network services and instant communication tools, how to strengthen oversight within a legal framework, guide public opinion, and ensure the orderly dissemination of online information while safeguarding national security and social stability has become a pressing problem for us.
And one of the things that was, this is really relevant with Trump cutting USAID. A lot of these kind of institutions are losing their funding. Right. And I think one of the things about China and many other socialist states is they have siege mentality. And, when you've been under attack for decades and decades and decades, the conditions and social freedom under siege is always going to be much more restrictive than in a period of peace. So this is where it comes in conflict with our society, right? Where we're used to just being able to, we don't live under siege. And so the logic of siege is not something that we're accustomed to. Whereas they're traumatized by, you know, a century of being under attack, under siege. And there is a reflexive insistence on maintaining power and control. And that is, I think, you know, understandable, but doesn't necessarily mean it's appropriate.
Atmosphere for the expression of opinion online does not imply that there should be only one voice and one tune. Rather, it means that people are not permitted to conflate right and wrong, circulate rumors, cause trouble, violate the law, or commit crimes. It means that people cannot overstep the boundaries of the Constitution and other laws.
He's saying you gotta regulate the speech to be reasonable. You can't let fascists go wild.
China's economic development has been a driving force in the creation of an emerging multipolar world. This global shift in the redistribution of economic power can be seen in the flourishing development of Chinese projects, notably the Belt and Road Initiative and the BRICS multilateral partnership. Under Xi Jinping's leadership, China has emerged as a dominant power on the world stage, which has presented hegemonic powers with a new challenge. Many Western countries have regressed back into economic nationalism, the erection of trade barriers, sanctions,
Colonel
and other soft power.
Wilkerson of the USA, former aide to Colin Powell, talked publicly about the U.S. backed Uyghur terrorists in Xinjiang to destabilize China. I'm sure that's true.
Tools mobilized to disrupt the creation of a multipolar world. But as Xi Jinping asserts, whether you like it or not, the global economy is the great ocean from which you cannot escape. Any attempt to cut off the flow of capital, technologies, products, industries, and people between economies and channel the waters into the ocean back into isolated lakes and creeks is simply not possible. Indeed, it runs counter to the historical trend. The history of humanity tells us that problems are not to be feared. What should concern us is refusing to face up to problems and not knowing what to do about them. The persistence of regional conflicts, terrorism, poverty, unemployment, economic crises, refugee waves, and widening income gaps are problems that have accelerated under the global economy shaped by unipolarity and Western universalism. But these problems are not inevitable outcomes of economic globalization. Rather, they are the consequences of excessive pursuit of profit by financial capital and the grave failure of financial regulation. War, conflict, and regional turbulence have created many problems, and their solution lies in making peace, promoting reconciliation, and restoring stability. Simply blaming economic globalization for the world's problems is neither consistent with reality nor helpful in finding solutions. Xi Jinping sees a bright future for China, enabling it to play a role on the world stage to promote peace and cooperation among multiple poles of power, rather than
We're in Afghanistan as we were in Germany post-World War II, because it is the only hard power the United States has that sits proximate to the Central Base Road Initiative of China that runs across Central Asia. If we had to impact that with military power, we are in position to do so in Afghanistan. Second reason we're there is because we're cheek and jowl with the potentially most unstable nuclear stockpile on the face of the earth in Pakistan. We want to be able to leap on that stockpile and stabilize it if necessary. And the third reason we're there is because there are 20 million Uyghurs, and if the CIA has to mount an operation using those Uyghurs, as Erdogan has done in Turkey against Assad, there are 20,000 of them in Idlib in Syria right now. Well, the CIA would want to destabilize China, and that would be the best way to do it, to foment unrest and to join with those Uyghurs in pushing the Han Chinese and Beijing from internal places rather than external.
I mean, yeah, I don't think there's any doubt that there's truth to that analysis. That being said, the United States did pull out of Afghanistan with Joe Biden's smartest move he ever made. But I don't think I think that's pretty clear that that was a strategy that the United States was pursuing. The United States likes to pursue fomenting religious and ethnic conflict in states that we're opposed to.
Domination and submission to a single one. I have made it clear again and again that China's door will never be closed. It will only open even wider. China will never waver in its effort to pursue high-quality opening up. China will never falter in its efforts to pursue an open world economy, and China will never relent in its efforts to pursue a global community of shared future.
Well, there you go, chat. That was a great video by Red Pen. I'm gonna hit that subscribe button, and I think that's a good place to call it for me today. I hope you enjoyed the video. You guys have been spamming me to watch. There's the link. Oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. All right, everybody. That's going to be it for me today. Thank you so much for hanging out. We'll be back tomorrow, 10 a.m. Eastern, 7 a.m. Pacific. Don't forget to hit all the follow buttons. Make sure you hit the follow button on the TikTok. The Tickety Talk. Because I'm going to start posting on that soon. All right, everybody. Stay safe. Solidarity forever. Free Palestine. And, wow.
Unites the world in song. So comrades, come and rally, for this is the time and place. Join the Central Committee and unite the human race. Down the bourgeoisie to see the end of capitalism. We must set Luigi free. Demand that health care be provided, as well as housing and food security. We'll build high-speed rails and revolutions with heads of billionaires and solidarity. Through this struggle we'll carry on. A gift up to Central Committee is one step closer to righting the wrong.